there's been studies that people with less money are sometimes happier than people with more money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because as I get more money, I feel more stress
Yeah. Mo money, mo
to try to keep
problems.
the money. Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. Because now, I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. I've been driving an old Subaru that I love. I love my Subaru,
Mm-hmm.
the Subaru Outback. Your husband has the same one.
Yeah, he
I,
has the
I
same one.
love, yeah, I love that car. It's a great car, but you know what? I
Mm-hmm.
don't really care much about making sure that it stays clean.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have a luxury vehicle and I'm so stressed out about it all the time. It's got bug goo on the front of it, or
Yeah.
oh no, the inside's dirty, or I can't let the dogs in this car because it'll mess it up because it's a
Mhm.
luxury vehicle, and it comes with all these new stressors. It's really
Yeah.
kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and the Subaru got in, got out, put it in service, put it out of service, didn't really care.
Yeah.
Just it was fine.
Yep.
Yeah, but this car has caused me so much stress.
You are listening to the We Are Not Safe for Work podcast. Your hosts, Renee and Nadja, will dive into all the different reasons why some entrepreneurs become unemployable.
And we're recording. Hi.
Hello.
So the first thing I wanted to talk about is how you and I always have something to talk about. Because
Always.
yesterday we were supposed to record, but we spent the whole time just chattering um, about more personal things, I guess I could say.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, I was like, "Well, I gotta go." So um, yeah, so here we are today, trying it again. So
Yes, yes, we are. But before we jump into the topic that we want to talk about,
yes.
I need to know your Barbie movie story.
Oh, okay. All right. So the weekend that the Barbie movie came out, at least I think it was the opening weekend, we went to Northeast Texas to see my mom, and we have it sounds weird, but we have a set of adult twins that live with us, and they're family friends, and they moved in last year, and they've been staying with us. It's been a wonderful experience, and they have gotten to know my mom, and so my mom wanted the twins to come to her house to see them. They're like 33 years old, I think.
Yeah.
32 or 33. I don't mean to overage them. But regardless, my mom was like, I really want you guys all to come see us. So we went to my mom's, and I forgot tiny towns. Now, the town that I grew up in is not the town that she lives in now, but she lives right next to it. But
Okay.
tiny towns, the town I came from, when I was growing up, we didn't even have a stoplight. We had a
Oh my
flashing red
goodness.
light in the center of town,
What?
but there were no stoplights. Now there's stoplights, which is really fascinating because it's grown so much.
Yeah.
But in the town that I came from, there was hardly anything there, as you can imagine, right? Not even a
Mhm.
stoplight. We had a Dairy Queen and a Sonic. So if you wanted to go to
Those
the
are landmarks
movies,
though in small towns.
oh,
Dairy Queen and
absolutely. Yeah.
Sonic.
Which, by the way, I cannot eat Dairy Queen or Sonic as an adult. I just can't. I've had so much of it
Yeah.
that there's just no room in my. It's like repulsive to me at
Right,
this
right.
stage.
Yeah.
Now I can still drink. Still love Sonic Ice, but so getting a drink and some tater tots, not the best I can do. But anyway, so if you want to go to the movies or do anything else, like go to Walmart or anything, you would go to the next town over, and but it's also a small town, but bigger. It was the big town, it had plenty of red lights. Um,
Did it have a Walmart?
yes, as a matter
Okay.
of fact, funny
That was
fact
one of
about
the
that.
things that
Yeah,
I learned when I moved to the US, like what determines a town as small or like big is
yeah.
does it have a Walmart?
Funny fact about that. This town I'm talking about is called Mount Pleasant, Texas, and I'm from Mount Vernon. The bigger town, the big town was Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant had the most profitable Walmart in the history of Walmart profit for many years, for like decades. I don't know if it's still true, but back when I was
Okay.
there, it was the most profitable Walmart because
Interesting.
it was the only Walmart in a massive radius size. So it fed all of these small towns, which is coincidentally still the same Walmart that my mom goes shopping at when she goes grocery shopping now because she lives in Pittsburgh, Texas. Anyway, we went to the theater to see Barbie in Mount Pleasant. And Mount Pleasant is still a very small, old Northeast Texas country town. And just the whole experience was uncomfortable in every possible way. Because my mother and I have very different ideas on politics, and it turns
Okay.
out that the Barbie movie is very political. Did not know that before I
I
went
was
to
gonna say,
it.
did you guys not know that going into it at
Mm-mm.
all?
No,
Okay.
not really. Didn't know much about it, to be honest.
Okay.
I knew I really wanted to see it,
Yeah.
and I was really excited to see it, and we all
Right.
wanted to see it,
Mhm.
but I had no clue where it was going, and it was a
Yeah,
very
I didn't know how political it was either, but,
Mhm.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. Andy and I loved it. We want to go see it again. We were trying to see if we could make a date night this weekend to go see it again because we really want to see it again in the theater before it leaves the theater. Um, and I loved it. It was amazing. There were so many opportunities or so many times in the movie where I just literally wanted to stand up and do a standing ovation. But it was one of those moments where you realize where you are and how
Mm.
no, and it was just this really strange tension. So it was like me and Andy, who were just
No.
super into it, and then this theater full of super right wing leaning people, including my mother. And there was the strangest tension in this place.
Oh,
But
that's so
also,
interesting.
what else really struck me about it was this is where I went to see ET. This is when I wanted to go to the movies when I was a kid. This is the same exact theater, and it should be condemned
Okay.
because no, I'm not even kidding. It was disgusting, which is
Oh,
fine.
no.
Gross is gross. We didn't know. I felt really bad taking my wife to that place, but I didn't know. And you would think they would remodel. But we walk in, and at one point, I had to go to the bathroom. Imagine that. I have the tiniest bladder on the planet, thanks to my mother, thanks to my grandmother. I inherited these things. But anyway, I go to the bathroom, and there's only two functioning stalls. It's like a four-stall bathroom, but there's only two functioning stalls. So you wait outside because it's uncomfortable. There's also no AC in the bathroom.
Oh,
So,
no.
yeah,
In Texas?
yeah, it
How is
was
that
very
allowed?
uncomfortable and gross. And so, anyway, I'm standing there outside of the toilet, outside of the bathroom, waiting for my opportunity to go in. And I just happened to look up, and part of the ceiling is gone.
What?
And around the ceiling above us, it's caving in, and there's just stuff
Oh my
coming out.
gosh.
And when we went in to sit, the theater, like, we kept having to skip seats. There was no assigned seating, like in a theater here somewhere you pick your
Right,
seats, and
yeah.
it wasn't like that. So we went in, we picked a row, and we kept having to skip seats, and we couldn't all sit next to each other because seats were broken.
Oh, no.
It was so strange. And so, like, the seat that I finally just gave up and sat in just was tilting. So, like, my right hip was about 6 inches lower than my left hip.
Oh my goodness.
Um, yeah, and it was just it was a very surreal experience. Going home is not always everything you think it's going to be.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it would be a terrific business opportunity for someone to go in and just put together to create a theater where maybe the seats aren't broken and the
Yeah.
ceiling's not caving in.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't even see snacks for sale. I don't even know if that was a thing. I don't think that was a thing. I don't think I would have eaten from that place anyway. But there was nothing happening in this theater. It was as if we went to a condemned building to watch a controversial movie. But the thing
You know,
that's so
I was gonna say
strange to
that
me,
reminds me of the did you ever go to the dollar theaters?
yes,
Okay, so that's the way you're describing it is how I'm remembering going to the dollar theater
yeah,
in
let me tell
college.
you, dollar theaters that I went to back in my college days were a luxury place compared to what we
Oh,
experienced.
wow. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I was like, I have been seriously contemplating if I should call the fire marshal, but how
Oh,
do they not know,
yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
such a small town. It's literally the only theater. But it also got me to thinking about something else. It's literally the only theater within probably 25 miles.
Mhm.
So if it's the only theater within 25 miles,
What choice do they
what's
have?
the incentive
Yeah. Yeah.
to do anything about it? You know, I will say the sound was good and the screen quality was nice.
Mhm.
So there was that, but it was recently I saw online when we were trying to because I couldn't remember the exact address. I saw online that it had recently been bought out by some conglomerate, and
Oh.
obviously they have no intentions, or not even recently, like a year or so ago. So they clearly have no intentions of upgrading it.
Mm.
But
Well, maybe
economics,
they're spending their investment on making sure that the screen and sound quality that like that's what they're
yeah,
upgrading, not
hmm
necessarily the structure. Which
right, and it's just interesting because one of the things that, like, my mom doesn't have the internet, right?
Mhm.
So because of where she lives, she doesn't
You
have the
can't.
internet,
Right.
right? And I don't think when you don't have the internet, you don't know the difference between some things. Like, right? Because here, if we see, we can actually go to the internet and choose which theater we're going to go to, right?
Right, yeah.
There's a lot more life choices living somewhere. Even though I live in a rural part of the metroplex, it's not that rural, you know. Um, there was just the movie itself was incredible, but the experience of seeing it there was a really good reminder to me that we're not all in the same situation.
Mhm.
Um, Perspectives do evolve based upon your circumstances as well, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the kind of opportunities that you have in a small town are just not, which is why I left, are just not the same you're going to have in Houston or in Dallas area,
Mhm.
Dallas Fort Worth. Um, and so it's really important, I think, as we are thinking about decisions for the future and also perspectives on something such as a movie like that,
Yeah.
that we get caught up in our own space, but you go to a space like that and it's just different. It's just
Yeah.
very different.
Yeah.
It was an uncomfortable, nothing about it was comfortable, which is okay. I don't think we're supposed to be comfortable all the time,
Right.
but I came out of it so excited and my
Yeah.
mom was just silent.
Oh my goodness.
And
And see,
yeah,
my movie going experience to see the Barbie movie was very different. Like in our movie theater, people were cheering and there were parts of the movie where people just like broke into applause
that's what I heard about.
and like people were like yeah like actually cheering at the screen and then other parts you could hear people sniffling because
Yeah.
they were I mean I was one of them. I ugly cried. Like it wasn't
Did
even
you?
just a
Yeah.
like tear coming down my face kind of thing. It was a like I was sitting there going and my daughter who's sitting next to me, she was like, are you okay?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah, so very different experiences.
very, very different. It was I really wanted to be in the experience where people were cheering because there was so much to cheer about.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
were so many amazing things in the movie, but if you depending on your point of view of life, I can also see, I mean, let's be honest, I can understand why people that live in a more patriotic, not patriotic, I can never say the word,
Patriarch. Yeah,
patriarchy, yeah,
patriarchy.
environment could see that as insulting, you know? I can understand why some people were offended by the movie, but
Mhm.
I also think that was the point. Not to
Yeah,
offend
yeah.
people, but to Ken in the movie, Ken was how most women are treated, you
Yeah,
know?
that's exactly what I was gonna say. All they did was they flipped the roles.
Hmm.
Like, usually, the hero is the man. He is the one that everybody worships and does all the things, and that the male is in the position of power, and the
Hmm.
female is kinda like a side character, and so they did not like seeing it from that perspective because they're not used to seeing it from that perspective. They can't relate to being in the sidecar. They can't relate to being a side character.
Right. Right. And I think it is definitely, it has hit me different because I think about a lot of things in terms of how does this, like what is the impact of certain things going to be. I'll give you, I don't know if this is going to make any sense or not, but there is I believe there is still a tribe of people, like, I don't know, somewhere in the jungle that is undisturbed, right?
Mhm.
That we've only observed them, a couple of people that have ever gone in to observe them in person, and then
Mhm.
we've only observed them through the air,
Yeah.
right? And as if people, and they've been protected to stay
Mhm.
that way. And I think
Yep.
that that's beautiful. And I think about these, one of the things that President Biden has made an initiative is to get internet to rural America, which I think is
Mhm.
fantastic, especially
Yeah.
for me. I look forward to all of these people wanting to search for recipes and cooking tips. So to me, I'm banking on this happening. I expect it to happen. But also, I do wonder what it's going to do to the culture. I know everyone has a cell phone, so people understand and see things on their phones. But
Yeah.
even some places out there, the data doesn't work. Like my phone just didn't work at my mom's house,
Mhm.
um, and it was very spotty at best.
Yeah.
And so I do wonder, as more people come online in these rural areas, what will that impact be to society? Will it change? Like if that movie had been released 10 years from now, would it change? Would the perspective be different? Will things be more equal there?
Mhm.
I do really wonder what that's going to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, access to information makes a huge difference, and that's the reason why keeping people uneducated and ignorant
mhm.
is what powerful people want to do, because an empowered and educated crowd
Yeah.
is so much stronger because they'll question things, they'll ask questions. They want people that do not ask questions because they don't know any better.
Okay.
Ye-
Okay. That was weird.
We're back.
So where were we? What were we talking about?
I mean, tech issues throw a wrench in everything,
Yeah.
right? Um, no, we were just I can't even remember. We were talking about different experiences, different walks
Yeah.
of life.
Yeah.
The Barbie
I think.
movie, the patriarchy. Oh, the tribes in
Oh, right.
Amazon that have been untouched by
Yeah.
civilization.
So it's like, I think, and listen, this is, first of all, if you found the movie insulting, I understand. I really do. I get it. Everything is about perspectives. I get it.
Right.
I don't think the point wasn't to insult men. The point was to use Ken as a play for how women are treated and to make it feel
Mhm.
uncomfortable. That was the point. Um,
Right.
and so if you come from small town America and you're offended by the movie, I have all respect for that. But shame on me,
Mhm.
who is as liberal as they possibly can come, going to small town America and watching such a movie. Really, this is my fault. Shame on me. There were other movie choices, and that's the one we chose.
There
And
were. Yep.
I did my best not to impact anybody else's experience by hooting and hollering. And there
Yep.
was no hooting and hollering, and I thought there should have been. And it was very uncomfortable for me. Pretty sure everyone else's experience was also uncomfortable. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be an interesting time seeing. I feel like the internet is like reading, especially depending on how you use it, right? But it can be enlightening. It can change perspectives. It can. I came from this place and I left this
Absolutely.
place because I didn't hold the same kind of views. And that's
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
because I'm gay. It's just because that's how I see the world. I just didn't agree with those point of
Right.
views, and um, I love men. I think men are amazing human beings, but I don't think that they should just naturally, by their pure existence, rule the world. And so
Right.
I also think that's partially on women that need to behave differently as well. So, with that said, we should talk about money.
You know, yes, we should. And actually, this is a good segue because I just wanted to add something real quick that my husband and I have had this conversation many times before because, as you and I have said in a previous episode, you and I come from
Hmm.
very different backgrounds, and like I'm Filipino and I'm married to a
Right.
white guy, so our kids are, they're blended. And there were many times when they were still babies where people just automatically assume when they see us all together, they assumed I was
I
the
forgot
nanny.
about that. I haven't thought about that in a while.
Y
Yeah.
Yeah, so they assume
Hmm.
I'm the nanny, and, he and I have talked about it before, how that thought just never crosses his mind, like, these things never
Hmm.
cross his mind about being judged or having judgment or even thinking like, "Oh, if I see a biracial couple, like, I don't immediately assume that the not white person is the
Hmm.
nanny or whatever." But he has said, he's like, I've grown up very privileged and I have the perspective of a white male. So he knows it and he says, I am at the top of the food chain. I have no perspective when it comes to judgment of, I mean, not just racism,
Sexism as
but
well.
just
Yeah.
in general. Yeah, sexism as well. So he's like, I am a white male. I have no room to pass any sort of judgment.
Well, another thing in the movie that I thought was interesting, well, there were so many things, but in that relation, yeah,
So
in that
many things.
relation, when Ken did discover the patriarchy and he tried to implement it, of course he did, because we all do our best to be our best version of ourselves. But if we can have more power
Mhm.
as a human, we generally want to seek it out so that we can have it. How
Mhm.
what we do with it
Yep.
may vary by person to person, but we definitely want to have more of it. It's why we all want to have more money. It's why we
Yeah.
strive for more success, right? And
Mhm.
so he wanted the power. Of
Yeah.
course, he had no idea what to do
Speaking
with
of
it.
money and success,
Yeah,
yeah.
he didn't know what to do.
Well, I mean, that's a great segue. So speaking of money and success, like that's kind of the topic that we wanted to dive into today because money, perspective, success, like all of that is based on perspective. Like every single person has a different definition of what success looks like, what it looks like to have a
Hmm.
lot of money, like what having a lot of money or not enough money means. Like these are all based on perspective and
Well,
experiences.
it's funny
So
because if you think about what I said about going to the movie, I mean, to me, the most bizarre part of it was the condition of the theater. Obviously, the people who
mhm.
bought out this theater had money to buy the theater, which could imply,
Well,
even
obviously,
if
yeah.
by taking out a loan against the property, they most likely have enough money to make it at least a safe place to be, not a condemned building. But the incentive is clearly
Mm-mm.
not there for them to do that, which I find fascinating.
Yeah, it's not their priority.
That's right. So it's not a priority for them to, just because they have money, to improve the environment of their properties. And I found that, so I've been thinking a lot about that. I find that really interesting because my first thought was, oh my God, this is a real business opportunity. You could come in here, um,
Mhm.
right next to it, there's just an empty concrete lot, something that used to be there, who knows what. And you could build a new theater literally next to it, and people could have a shiny new theater or this theater. Obviously they're going to go to the shiny new theater, but I
Yeah.
realized, well, that doesn't make
Yeah.
business sense, because for a 25-mile, and I don't know if that's exactly right, but we'll just say it for the sake of conversation, for maybe a 25-mile radius, this is the only theater. So if you want to see a movie, you go to this theater. So there's zero incentive to build something better next to it. So the people in power are choosing to profit instead of improve. And I think that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Yeah, because I mean, if the condemned build or not condemned building, but if the state of the building was the perception was it was like
Hmm.
a condemned building, right? Like let's say that's in the middle of a very affluent area. The priority would be to fix it up because they want those rich
That's a
people
good point.
to be
Yeah.
coming to the movie theater and spending their money. So that would become the priority. But if it's in the middle of a small town where, like you said, there are no other choices within a 25-mile radius, then people are going to put up with stuff. Like they'll put up with things if they don't have to drive 30 miles to go see a
Right.
movie, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. That's the problem with power as well. So yeah, it's just
Mhm.
interesting. It just brought up a lot of things because the movie itself, the experience, it just brought up a lot of questions about society and power. And I feel really bad because when we were there were some young girls that were so excited to see the movie, and they were in their Barbie garb, teenagers, right? Like probably 13,
Mhm.
14, and they were taking pictures next to the movie poster. And I was just like, I can't believe this has to be their experience. It's so sad to me that
Oh.
this
Yeah,
place
yeah.
was their experience, and they're still excited and taking pictures. And I'm like, oh man, I know.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
But also they don't know
right.
any better. Or you have to assume that they don't
Right.
know any better.
Which, have you ever seen, I feel like I've heard some studies.
Or I'm sorry, I should rephrase that because I feel like that was really judgy. It's not that they don't know any better, they don't know any different.
Right.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, and I know what you meant, but I'm glad you clarified it. But I there was been studies that people with less money are sometimes happier than people with more money.
Mhm.
And it's funny because as I get more money, I feel more stress
Yeah, mo money,
to
mo
try to keep
problems.
the money. Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. Because now, I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. I've been driving an old Subaru that I love. I love my Subaru, the
Mhm.
Subaru Outback. Your husband has the same one.
Yeah, he
I,
has the
I
same
love,
one.
yeah, I love that car. It's a great car, but you know what? I
Mhm.
don't really care much about making sure that it stays clean.
Mhm.
Now I have a luxury vehicle, and I'm so stressed out about it all the time. It's got bug goo on the front of it, or
Yeah.
oh no, the inside's dirty, or I can't let the dogs in this car because it'll mess it up because it's a
Mhm.
luxury vehicle, and it comes with all these new stressors. It's really
Yeah.
kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and the Subaru got in, got out, put it in service, put it out of service, didn't really care.
Yeah.
Just it was fine.
Yep.
Yeah, but this car has caused me so much
Yeah.
stress.
Well, it's kind of like, I mean, I assume that you know of, Neil is it Neil Patel? No, not Neil Patel. He's the I will teach you to be rich guy.
Oh, Ramit Sethi.
Ramit Sethi. Okay, so you know of Ramit Sethi, obviously, because you corrected
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
But okay, so Ramit Sethi, one of the things that I love that he harps on all the time, and it's almost repetitive because I feel like he's constantly saying the same thing over and over and over again, is that you design your own rich life. Like rich is your definition of what rich is. So if
Right.
your rich life means that you spend more money on um like a nicer house versus spending money on cars and clothes and all that kind of stuff, then that is your rich life. If your rich life is spending money on experiences versus having the bigger and nicer house or the
Hmm.
luxury vehicle, then that is your rich life. But I love that he says your rich life is your own. It's not what everybody else thinks it should be.
Right.
It is you. Like, what do you prioritize? So if your priority is like if you're a foodie and you want to spend money on food, do it because it makes you happy.
You
don't
know,
don't sit here and think that just because you can't afford to buy a house and that's not your priority is not buying a house, but your priority is having all these food experiences. Don't let people bully you into thinking that you are being frivolous with your money because you want to
you're so
eat
right
at
on.
Michelin star restaurant. You know what I mean? Like
I
I
do.
love that about him.
I know a guy, Jason Baha Mundi. is his name. I'll never
Oh.
forget his name. He
Mm.
used to work for me years ago when I owned a website company and social media company. He was our sales guy, and him and his wife are super into fitness, like outrageously into fitness. I know they're vegetarian. I think they're vegan. I
Mhm.
don't know, but super duper into fitness. And specifically, he's into triathlons and she's into long distance running.
Okay.
And so they used to have a house. They moved here from New York City and they got a house and they got married and they got a house and the whole thing you're supposed to do. But they realized that the house was getting in the way of their fitness love. So they
Mm.
sold their house, which most people think is crazy, and they moved into an apartment just big enough for them.
Okay.
And so they just have an apartment and their life is centered around their fitness hobbies. And
Great.
that's it. So he spends more on a bicycle than some people will spend on, I don't know what, but like
Right.
ten,
Yeah.
$20,000 bikes, right?
Yeah.
But so he bought a car, a vehicle, not a car, an SUV, specifically for his bicycle
Mm.
because
Yeah.
he didn't want his bicycle hanging off the back of his vehicle
Yep.
because his bicycle was worth more than his car at the time.
Right. Yeah.
So he bought a new SUV that fit. He didn't go out and buy an SUV that he thought was going to be like the coolest SUV or the best. He bought it. He took his bike and said, "This bike fits best in this SUV."
Mhm.
So he went SUV shopping to fit his bike. And
Yeah.
that has never left me because him and his wife figured out what was most important to them,
Yep.
and everything in their life centers around that reality.
Yeah,
And I
and
think that's interesting.
I think that's the way it should be, right? Like,
I agree.
whatever yeah, whatever it shouldn't be about keeping up with the Joneses because that gets so many people into trouble. That's why people go into debt because they want
Mhm.
to appear a certain way to other people that when you really think about it, I mean, once again, it's always easier said than done. Like it's easier to think, "Oh yeah, that's logical," but you also can't control your thoughts, like who cares what other people think if you don't have the fanciest car or who cares what people think if you don't have designer furniture, like who cares? But at the same time, it's hard not to care.
Well, it's true. And I think to your point, like, I just want to talk about this a little bit because, like I just said, I own a luxury vehicle now. But the reason that I own a luxury vehicle is not because, oh my God, I got enough money and I wanted to get a luxury vehicle. No. Matter of fact, the price of the damn thing is killing me. But I got a luxury vehicle because my wife ended up with severe, really bad sciatica, and it was
Mhm.
debilitating for her.
Mhm.
And we went bowling, and we each hurt ourselves. And yeah, no,
Oh,
it's the truth. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I went bowling with a group of my friends, and every single one of us. This was several years ago. Anyway, every single one of us walked away injured and has
oh
remained
my
injured.
goodness, that's
I'm
crazy.
like, that's a sign for people that are severely out of shape because they spend too much time on the computer. But that's a whole other conversation. Regardless, when we couldn't spend hardly any time at all in a vehicle, in our Subaru in particular, without her just being seriously uncomfortable. So I said, okay, let's buy the car that is going to be the most comfortable car that money will buy, that
Yeah.
we can buy,
Mhm.
that will make her life better.
Yeah.
And so I didn't buy a luxury vehicle because, oh, look at me. I bought a luxury vehicle because it made our life significantly better. And now it is. We go all over the place and it's great. And
Yeah.
it works really well for her. It sits well for her. And she's doing better in general anyway now, but that's why I bought the car. Not
Right.
because I'd suddenly came in the money.
Mhm.
Because I'm still the same person that wears $10 pants from CVS because they're
Yeah.
my favorite.
Yep.
So
So I love that you brought up like your $10 pants from CVS or whatever because I am the person that I will spend hundreds of dollars on shoes,
me too.
but I will hit the bargain racks for my clothes.
Yeah, same.
Because to me, I'm like, well, clothes, they go out of style so quickly. And if I'm going to wear these clothes, I take care of my clothes too. So I still
Mhm.
have clothes from, you're going to laugh because I get made fun of about this all the time. I have clothes from high school. So I have clothes from
Yeah.
high school and college because I have been very fortunate that I haven't changed size and weight very
Right.
much. Like as
Right.
I've gotten older, I will thank my Filipino genetics on that.
That's to say that's genetics.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
definitely genetics because my diet, yeah, it's not the greatest.
By the way, let's point something out. You've brought this up before, and I just want to say it as a little pin. Just because you're skinny doesn't mean you're healthy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Just because somebody is thin does not mean that they are healthy.
that's right. I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Whole other conversation.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, so because I do take care of my clothes, I still have things from high school and college that A, I still fit into, and B, are still in good condition. And it's not because I spent a shit ton of money on the most expensive fabrics or whatever. I mean, I do have a couple of clothing items that are very pricey. Like I can't believe that I
Hmm.
spent that much money on them or whatever, but
Hmm.
obviously like it for the long term, like for when I worked in corporate, yeah, I went ahead and spent a little bit more money to buy the more expensive like blazer because I knew
Right.
that I could use
Right.
that over and over and over again for multiple different outfits, but it gave me that professional, the
Sure.
professional look or whatever. Um and I figured that out quickly because before I mean I spent a lot of time at Forever 21 thinking, yeah, in my 20s, I'm like I go into Forever 21 and then I'm like, "Oh, this makes me look so professional. Like look how professional I look."
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, it didn't. Especially if it starts tearing at the seams or whatever, and then now I have to like
Right.
either fix it or throw it out. So, I learned pretty early on that okay, certain things you need to buy the better quality. But I will never cheap out on shoes, or at least now I will never cheap out on
Hmm.
shoes. Because after having my foot surgery, so I had surgery on my foot to remove a mass that was growing around a bundle of nerves and blood vessels in my foot.
Ugh.
So going from like the recovery process of that made me realize just how important it was to take care of my feet because just being on
Yeah.
a foot, like just being on one foot, and you know me, I'm super active. I'm really involved in everything that my kids do for activities and things like that. Like
Hmm.
I struggled during that recovery period because there were so many things that I could not do on my own. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so now I take really good care of my feet because I don't want to get to that point again. I don't want to get to a point where I'm dependent on other people for help because I am only on one foot.
Yeah, I mean, I have the exact same situation. I've always spent a lot on shoes because I've had multiple knee surgeries
Mhm.
and I have weird birth defects with my knees. So standing is painful, or it
Yeah.
can be. And then when we moved to this house, it's all tile floor. And I didn't realize how much of an impact that would make
Yeah, you got to put down
coming from
blood.
the laminate flooring had more
Uh-huh.
cushion. I didn't know that. I had no idea.
It
And
makes
so the
a
first
difference,
week,
doesn't it?
yeah, oh yeah, the first week in this house, I was in so much debilitating pain. I went to the doctor. I was in bad shape with my
Wow.
knees, and I was like, "What the hell is it? The move? What's going on?"
Yeah.
And so the recommendation was for me to get better shoes, and I did. And now I have um, like 5 pairs of Hokas, and every
Mhm.
day I wear a different pair.
Yeah.
Not because ooh I'm trying to be cool or stylish. It's so that the shoes can recover.
Yeah.
And I don't hardly have, other than if the weather's bad, I don't hurt anymore.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that's a good use of money. I think that to Ramit's point, designing your life around your money, and I know that sounds easy for somebody that doesn't is struggling with money, but we're struggling with money too.
Yeah.
But we have to choose what's most important.
Well, right, exactly. Yeah, so
So
that's the same for us. So like our priorities are I kind of touched upon it before. So in our family, like our core priorities are experiences. We would rather spend money on experiences than things. So
mhm,
yeah, like a
yeah,
lot of people I'm sure they judge us because we will buy furniture from IKEA, because
yeah, me
it's
too.
cheap, but it looks nice.
Hmm.
But it's not like designer furniture or whatever. Um, but our priorities are in the experiences. Like, we want our kids to have experiences. Our children have been so fortunate that they've been to other countries, you know,
Right.
eh, and there are kids in there that are in the same ages that probably have never even left the state or the city that they live in. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Oh, I
um,
do.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we prioritized experiences because I grew up fortunate in that we traveled a lot, and going to other countries was always a huge treat, but I loved being able to experience like other cultures. I loved being able to experience what it was like being in another country,
Hmm.
where everything was different. Like, I grew up in Australia, but we would go home to the Philippines, and the Philippines is a very, very different environment than Australia. And,
Right.
like, the Philippines is considered a third world country, but there there's there's a very stark difference in class, if you want to like put it in really simple terms.
And that's
um
not classiness. That's
right, it's like you can see the extreme poverty right next to the extreme wealth.
right.
So you have people that are literally living in shacks, like they're squatters because they don't own the land, but they've built tin shacks so they have somewhere to live out of the elements, and they hijack the electrical lines, so they have some electricity in there. Like, it's crazy how it is.
Almost
Right.
sounds like you're describing Skid Row in LA, which I've never seen personally, but
I've never seen Skid Row either. But yeah, so it's basically like the extreme poverty right next to like these beautiful homes that are like multi-stories, and all concrete, right? With
right.
these gorgeous gardens. Land is very, very scarce in the Philippines because the Philippine Islands are, what is it? I can't even remember. It's like 7,500 islands make up
Oh
the
gosh, I have no
Philippines,
idea.
right?
Mhm.
So land is very scarce. And if you own a lot of land, you are considered very wealthy.
Yeah, interesting.
So I love that I was able to have those experiences. We value the experiences over the things, and so we would rather our kids have experiences too. So they don't have like the latest and greatest phones, right? Like, they don't have the latest and greatest iPhone. No, I went on woot.com and I bought them iPhone 7s. Like,
Oh
probably
wow, yeah,
the oldest version of iPhones you can possibly get right now.
yeah,
And I told them it's because this is not for playing games on. These are emergency phones, so you have a way to contact us in case of an emergency, right?
yeah.
Um and they don't have like designer clothes or anything like that. I will admit that I did spend a little bit of money buying them shoes, because once again, shoes are very important to me. So,
Yep.
like, taking care of your feet is an important thing to me. So I want to impart that level of importance to my kids. And yeah, but we'll go to Target, and I'll buy them the $5-10 leggings and t-shirts, graphic t-shirts or whatever.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
um yeah, I'll stand there and be like, oh, this shirt is $22. Why is it
Yeah.
$22 at
Yeah,
Target?
I totally.
Like, yeah.
Well, I have two things. One, going back to where I grew up with people that never left like within 40 minutes of home
Mm-hmm.
until they were in their mid 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. I asked my wife. I said, told her that we were going to have this conversation about money today, and we have this saying, which we have not achieved, but we have this saying that we say to each other almost every single day. First, get $1 million,
Mm-hmm.
then start a business. Um,
Elaborate. I laugh
yeah,
because, yeah, I know
yeah.
where
I,
you're
I
going with
only
this.
laugh
But
because
continue.
we
Go
did
ahead.
not do that, but it seems to me, and I would be curious to know your thoughts on this. If you had someone come to you and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting a business," let's just say digital. Let's not even go into physical business. Let's just say a digital business. That's how we get to the first have $1 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to have money in the bank. so that you have time, you have a runway to make money. One of the
Absolutely.
things that we did wrong was trying to live off of it too soon.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that that has caused us a lot of stress. And part of that was circumstance, you know.
Right, right.
Um, but what would you advise to someone in regards to money if they were going to start a business?
I mean, yeah, I would probably suggest the same thing knowing what I know now. Because if you really think about it, like a lot of people that go into entrepreneurship, it's because they're in a job earning money, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
think that they can earn more. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I can earn more or I can earn the same doing this on my own. And that's a great start. That's a great mentality to have. Yes, you absolutely can earn the same amount or more on your own doing the same thing, like working for yourself versus working for a company. But the only reason that you were able to do that is because you are currently earning money so you can invest time to grow your business on the side. And you and I have talked about this many, many times before, but always say there are only two currencies in this life. You pay with money or you pay with time.
Mm-hmm.
So if
Mm-hmm.
you don't have the time to do something, you're going to spend money to get something done. Like if you do not
Right.
have the time to clean your house, you are going to pay somebody money to clean your house, or vice
Right.
versa. If you don't have the money to pay someone to clean your house, you are going to spend time cleaning your own house. So
Yeah.
those are the two currencies of life, and it's a balancing act. That's not something that you can necessarily integrate unless you have like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos fuck you level money, like
Right. Right. Fuck you, money. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
haven't reached
you've
that
gotta have
stage in my life. Yeah.
that kind of money to be able to be like, "Oh, yeah, I can integrate, like, the time and the money currency." Yeah, you absolutely can because you don't have to worry about it. But the majority of people have to balance the time and money argument all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is a choice, and that's why I always say too that choice is what brings power. Right? You have power when you have a choice.
Right. Right.
If you have the choice between spending money and spending time, you have power. If you have no choice where you have to spend money or you have to spend time, that's where people really struggle. And I think that's where the desperation sinks in too, like where a lot of people jump into entrepreneurship, they start their own business. They think that, oh, okay, well, now I'm making enough, I can quit my job and I can go all in on this, not
Yeah.
realizing that without a runway of a safety net. Like I know that there are a lot of people out there that say you've got to have skin in the game, and like burning the bridge will make you like hunger for it more, and it'll give
Mm-hmm.
you the drive to like really reach the level of success that you need or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's all good and well to say, but especially in this economy, like that's not really the um it's not the safest. What am I trying to say? It's too dangerous to give that type of advice because
Right.
now you are messing with people's livelihoods.
I agree. Like I've heard over the years, people say, well, because people say, well, you need to have a runway,
Yeah.
right? Which I totally agree with. But then people ask the question, how much runway? Well,
Mhm.
the number that I hear all the time is 6 months. And I'm like, dude, that can't be true. That can't be true.
Yeah.
Um, because I think that there's multiple kinds of businesses too. And I think part of it depends on what kind of business you have. If you have a business with clients,
Mhm.
and you leave with clients, that's great.
Mhm.
But what happens if you lose 50% of your clients? Because there
Right.
is churn, right?
Mhm.
Or if you're in
Mhm.
a situation like mine where you are dependent on ad revenue, right?
Right.
What if ad revenue drops, which is what happened to us this year, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I really think the reason that we joke all the time, first get $1 million, is because $1 million is not enough to retire on. It sounds like this massive number,
No,
right?
it's
And I
not.
haven't achieved it
It
yet,
is
so it
not.
sounds Yeah, I haven't achieved it yet, so I can't say how it feels,
I was gonna
but
say, I know broke millionaires. Like, I know that sounds
exactly.
it sounds like a contradiction, but no, there are millionaires who are broke.
Right. But if you do it right and you have, let's say, in theory, if you had $1 million, it floats you so that
Mhm.
you can operate during down years.
Exactly.
Because I've been doing this for a while now, and we have good years,
Yep.
and we have years like this year that are
Yeah.
really, really bad years.
Right.
And so I have started transitioning my thinking about money personally, and this is just for me, but I think that if somebody is starting out, they should think the same way. I'm now trying to think about money on an annual basis. And
Mhm.
if you're someone who's making 13, 14, $15 an hour, that's the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, right?
Right.
Because you're
Yeah.
just trying to make it to the next payday. And
Exactly.
that's okay, because what you can start thinking about then is, what is the next payday? What can I do between now and the next payday to
Mhm.
save up a little bit for the, just to have a little bit of savings, $5, whatever it
Yeah.
is, for the next payday? Because now I have to think about money next year,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And I, our revenue fluctuates so dramatically month by month.
Yep.
And now I'm noticing, as we make more and we have more success with the blogs, that now my revenue is fluctuating year by year
Mhm.
dramatically. This year is going to be about 50% of what it was last year.
Right.
And if I have that again next year, we're done. That's it. That's the end of it
Yeah.
for us. We'll be out of
Yeah.
business.
Well, and
But
there needs to be that mentality shift too, because like you said, you're thinking about it on a year to year basis, right?
right.
But that is the entrepreneur mindset, or that is the business owner mindset. The business owner
Yeah.
is looking at the big picture, and they're looking at the long term repercussions and or rewards, right?
Hmm.
When you are still in a 9 to 5, like an employee mindset really is like a 6 month runway for an employee is great. That is
Sure. Oh,
amazing. Like,
absolutely. Because if you
where
get
you
laid off, you could probably find another
exactly.
job.
You have a safety net, and
Right.
6 months safety net for an employee is phenomenal. I mean, like, there's a lot of people that don't even have a 3 month safety net, as
Sure.
employees, and so, like, having a 1 month safety net is a huge accomplishment, you know? But that's the reason why people like Dave Ramsey, they always recommend having having your emergency fund,
Mhm. Mhm.
just to start is 3 months, but he
Right.
recommends, yeah, if you can get it to 6 months or a year, and that's your emergency fund, great. And the emergency fund is basically like what you make and spend on essentials every single
Mhm.
month. You can live off of that for the next 6 months to a year
Right.
without changing anything.
But it's funny if you think about that. That sounds so fanciful,
It
right?
does, and it
But
is.
when you
For a
were
lot of people, it is so out of touch, right?
exactly, I mean, if you're on a fixed income,
Mhm.
which is, I used to think of a fixed income when I'd hear that phrase. I just thought that meant people on Social Security, but now I understand that also means people in corporate America as well,
Yes. Uh-huh.
right? So if you're on a fixed income, trying to save 6 months, it's such a crazy thought.
Yeah,
It
you gotta
almost
make
feels insulting.
sacrifices to be able
Yeah,
to even set it aside, right? Like, you've gotta
yeah,
live below
absolutely.
your means.
Yeah, I remember when I first got into blogging, from at the level that I'm at now, and
Yeah.
I started talking to other highly successful bloggers, people way above me. I kept hearing this concept of, most bloggers make the next year's income in Q4. So what they make in Q4 is what they live off of the future year.
Yeah.
So um, I think that's interesting, because if you were to think of your life like that, that might be the only way to save money.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how do you ever save if you're living off of what you make?
Right, right.
Yeah, I don't know. Another thing Andy told me to bring up was that for years, while I was trying this business thing, she kept a job and supported us. So we
Yep.
lived off of very, very little for two people, because we lived purely off of her income, and
Mhm.
I made hustle money here and there,
Right.
until suddenly. she was able to leave her job because of my income.
Right.
And now we wonder if that was wise, considering the year that we're having. But um, I don't know. But
Well,
I think,
you made the best decision. You you made the best decision for your family at the time with the information that you had.
mhm,
So don't ever look back on it with regret, because yeah, it's easy. Hindsight is 2020. It's always easy to
always.
look back and be like, "Oh, this is what I should have done differently," or "We should have done things this way instead of that way." So it's always easy to look back like that. But in in the moment that you were in, with
Oh
the
yeah,
information that you had, that was the best decision for you guys.
sure. And the other thing that we did before she did that was we got completely out of debt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we got completely out of debt. We saved enough money to live for, I think, 3 years. And also, sounds so ridiculous saying all this out loud, but we saved enough to live, I think, for 3 years. We got completely out of debt. And when my business was making enough to pay the bills, that's when she came into, she left her job.
Mhm.
Um, and the thing about that, though, is it sucks because you want to do the exciting thing of hurry all of that along, right? You want to go all in because the thing that you hear so much, like you said earlier, is you got to have some skin in the game.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's dangerous advice.
I think so too.
Yeah. But I think the thing is, as your income grows, so do your expenses,
Mhm.
whether it's team or just general bills. Like, I'll give you a
Yeah.
perfect example. Um, I used to pay like $100 a year for hosting, and now I pay $300 a month. So you have to account for things like that too. And that's just
Right,
one
right.
example, but all of
Yeah.
that starts to add up as well. So,
Yeah. Well, and once again, like, more money, more problems, right? Once
absolutely.
the priority levels, they do shift every single time. So like if I looked back at my business when I was still working in corporate America, like the things that I'm currently spending money on would seem insane back then. Like
Yeah.
thinking about, like paying for coaching, right? Like
Yeah.
back in 2014, paying $2,500 a month for coaching would have sounded insane to me. It's like that's like 3 times my mortgage at the time.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, like paying that much, but at the same time, like you get to different stages of your business, you get to different stages of life where now the investments that you're making, that's how you look at spending money. When you're in an employee mindset, you're not looking at your spending as investments. You're looking at your spending as, this is money leaving, and then this is what I get back in
Hmm.
return, right? Like
Hmm.
you're just looking at the one-to-one exchange. Like I
Right.
pay this and I get this immediately. Um but like recently, I don't know if you saw it, but Amanda Bond, we love Bond.
Oh,
Like
yes.
she is our spirit animal. Like
Well, that's right.
we are
That's what I
so
always
obsessed
say.
with her.
Yeah.
Amanda Bond, we love you.
We
But
love
Amanda
Amanda
Bond
Bond.
recently shared an insight where she was saying, when you go to college, you pay for your education, right? So
Hmm.
you spent, like, you earn 15 credit hours. Let's just do an average. On average, you earn 15 credit hours per semester, right? And you need at
Right.
least 4 semesters to be able to graduate with a degree. Or not 4 semesters, I'm sorry.
4 years.
4 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you think about that, you have spent 4 years of your life paying for an education so you can graduate with this piece of paper that says you have mastered this educational level, right?
Right.
With all of the digital courses, digital education, how freely information is accessible because of the internet, once again,
Hmm.
um, people are just in this state of mind where I spent 2 hours learning this thing, I should be an expert at it now. That's not the case. That's not
Right.
how it works, like that's 2 hours. That is a class, barely. That's 2 classes. You went to class twice and now you're an expert at it. Like, people don't look at their personal development, personal growth, continuing education. They don't look at it in the same way as going to college, but they really should, because you need
Oh,
to
I
invest
agree.
that
Yeah.
much time into gaining the knowledge to actually say, "I know what I'm talking about."
Whenever I wanted to learn SEO, I didn't have any money. None.
Mhm.
We were broke. I mean, I went to food banks broke, you know?
Right.
And so the only thing I had was the internet. So what I did, and this is something that I would recommend that everyone do, is that I literally went back then. The big thing was, this was years ago now. The big thing was to give away ebooks in exchange for newsletter signups.
Mhm.
So what I did was I went to every single website that I could possibly find, and I downloaded every free ebook that I could possibly find. I went on Amazon and I got every $0 ebook that was even slightly related to SEO. And I think it was 100 ebooks on SEO.
Yeah.
And that was how I learned it. And at the time, I was not doing well, so I went and tried to find a job, and I put this as part of my resume that I had done this.
Mhm.
And man, I had a job immediately because I had spent more time on learning this topic than almost anyone, you know,
I
in
am
the
nodding
same
my head
stratosphere.
emphatically. You guys can't see it, but I'm like,
Yeah.
"Preach."
Yeah. And so whenever I wanted to learn blogging, that's what I did too. I didn't have money at the time
Yep.
to spend. But let me tell you, every step of the way, every time I did have money, I spent it on learning the
Exactly.
next level, right?
Mhm.
Um it there you have two choices in life. You can do nothing or you can find a way to educate yourself.
Yeah.
And that education gives you the edge
Yeah.
that other people don't have, and people just don't think of it that way. So Amanda's so right, man.
Yeah, and not just education, but also think about like critical thinking, because it's one thing to learn things and then say, "Oh, well, I learned this, and so this is the way it is." You need to also have the additional step or the additional awareness to learn something and then question it. Like, "Okay, well, but where did this come from? Where did this thought, arise? How was
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
proven?" Like, these are the things you need to be able to ask those questions too, and not take everything at face value, because I think that's the big danger. I mean, I feel like I keep saying everything's dangerous. Like, everything's dangerous right
Well,
now.
to your
But
point, I also would put it all into practice.
yes, yes. So it's one thing to learn all the things, but yeah, you absolutely need to put it into practice. You absolutely need to get that experience. But also, yeah, look at it through critical lens, of just because one person says it's this way doesn't mean that's the only way to do it. Try to
Yeah.
get different perspectives. So going back to the whole perspectives and choices and options, like that's where your power lies. When you figure out that there are multiple ways to get to the same place, like that's you're halfway there already. Like, if you know that there are multiple avenues to get to the same destination, that that's a great step into entrepreneurship, but also into the whole money situation. Like, everybody has the ability to make $1 million. Everybody takes
Hmm.
very different ways to get there.
Absolutely. And back to your point though about time and money, something else that I think about a lot is a conversation that I had with Kate Erickson from Entrepreneur on Fire,
We also love
Entrepreneurs.
Kate.
Yeah, we love Kate. So, a conversation I had with Kate years ago, I'll never forget it. And I think about it almost every single day because one of the things with entrepreneurship and money is that you're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices, right? So,
Mhm.
like we talked about with shoes, I can't have the nicest pants and the nicest shoes.
Mhm.
So I have the best shoes I can get for my feet and the cheapest pants that stay together, you
Right.
know? Um, there's always sacrifices. But Kate talked about when her and John still lived in California and they had an apartment right on the beach, and they were trying to build up their business and they had nothing. They were, nowhere. It was super new. She literally just started. I think she was working on a TV tray
Mhm.
in their apartment. And she said that she could see she's a real outdoorsy person. Super. I don't know if there's a person on this planet that's more outdoorsy than her. I mean,
I
I would
know,
suggest
right?
she's even,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say that she's even more so than John, but her husband. But she would sit there and she could see the beach and all these people. And there was one time where she literally saw her family, her parents, and her, I think it was her sister and nieces, walking by their apartment having the best time. And she was sitting there working. And it was a Sunday. And she told herself that she had to sit there and work because she was sacrificing something that most people will never sacrifice for a
Mhm.
future that most people will never have.
Right.
And I think about that a lot because, as you well know, for years, Andy and I lived in this tiny little house that we hated,
Mhm.
and we sacrificed and had hardly anything in our lives for a long time while I sat there and blogged and worked on blogging and learned
Yep.
blogging. And I started at the very beginning knowing nothing, but I had
Yeah.
a passion and we had a shared dream of a different life. And we weren't going to get it by working our corporate little jobs for, 50 grand a year. We
Right,
just wasn't,
right.
we just weren't going to get there. And I think about that sacrifice, and you can't have it all at once, usually speaking, unless you win the lotto. And that doesn't seem to go well for people.
Mhm.
But I'd like to give it a try. But yeah. I
Well,
think that there's a
going
lot
to
of
the lottery,
sacrifice.
that's another thing that I think is a very dangerous, like, rabbit
Yeah.
hole to go down because I was reading about, like, when the lottery hit, like, 1.2 billion or however insane amount it was,
It
um,
got that
pe
high?
yes, it was, like it was over $1 billion, and
Wow.
people
Okay.
were spending their child support money on lottery tickets
No.
thinking, "Oh, well, if I spend my child support money on this like, on lottery tickets, it's going to pay me back tenfold." Well, first of all, you can't, like I understand there's, like, the laws of abundance and there's, like, manifestation and things like that, like, lots of people believe in that, but you can't
I'm a big
manifest
believer in
a
that. Yeah.
lottery, like, jackpot winning, right? Like, the chances of you winning that, it's all chance.
Yes.
And you can't go into it thinking, like, if I just want it really, 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 really bad, like, if I want it, then the laws of manifestation and attraction will just make me have okay, everybody wants it. Everybody wants it just as much, if not more than you do.
That's right.
So please
That's
don't
right.
spend your child support money. Please do not spend your life savings on lottery tickets. That's just my little soapbox for right now because that was very upsetting to me when I was reading about people spending their child support
Oh
money. I'm
my
like, your
God.
poor child. Your child needs that. Or children, you know?
Yes, totally. Oh my lord,
Sorry, I
that's
didn't mean
terrifying.
to take us
No,
all
no, that's.
yeah,
But
sort of
going into manifesting, we had these affirmations that we said for years, and that were money affirmations. But the thing that I think that they did, they felt a little creepy because some of that stuff can feel creepy. But we did it anyway because we wanted to focus. But
sure.
the thing that it did is that manifestations, or at least an affirmations, I should say. I don't know about manifestations. Affirmations provide a daily focus on your goals, right?
Yes.
It help. I believe that they don't bring magic; they bring attention. And when I say attention, I'm talking about your
Focus.
attention,
Yep.
my attention, right? I think that they refocus us. I think
Mhm.
that they remind us of what is most important to us.
I absolutely agree, yes.
Yeah, and they're not magic.
Right.
There is no such thing as luck. I've been thinking about a Facebook post I want to write about this issue. I don't believe in luck. I think moments happen and people capitalize on them.
Mhm.
And a lot of people let moments slip by instead of capitalizing on them.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, and
the people that,
everything
Go ahead.
You have to take action, right? Like that's really what it comes down to. You can wish as hard as you want, but if you take no actions towards whatever it is you want, it's never going to happen. Like
That's
I'm
right.
sorry, but it's not. You can pray, you can light candles, you can burn sage, you can have a crystal altar, like whatever it is you want to do to try to manifest whatever it is you want. If you take no action toward it, it's not going to happen.
That's right. That's right. And I think that is difficult for people to get their heads around,
Mhm.
because I think there's a lot of mixed messages.
Yeah.
But that's why I hang on to those things, like we talked about, like the story with Kate, um,
Mhm.
because it's just a good reminder that people who find tremendous. By the way, for anybody that doesn't know, John and Kate have had outrageous success,
They sure have.
but the only reason that it happened wasn't luck. They didn't get lucky. They worked
Mhm.
tirelessly.
Mhm.
They sacrificed so much to make it happen, um, and that's how they got there. And by the way, just because you do that doesn't mean you're going to be successful. There are, right
Yeah.
alongside John and Kate, there are plenty of people who at the same time were sacrificing plenty, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So it doesn't always work,
No.
and that's a hard part. That's the gamble. That's the lotto right there.
Right, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Goodness.
yep. I guess it's a. I'm just looking at my notes. Oh, the only other thing
Oh,
that
yeah,
my
we
lessons.
started taking notes because we squirrel so much.
Yeah. The only other thing I think I didn't say is, I don't. This isn't always possible, because, but don't make financial decisions based upon what you think you'll make next year. Make
Yeah.
financial decisions based upon what's in the bank.
Yeah, absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
Because
how
the danger
you
of entrepreneurship is, it's hard to tell.
Yes, yes. Once again, it's that danger thing, right? So I completely agree because it's one thing to be optimistic about what your income is going to look like in the future, but also like from a business owner standpoint, yes, the business owner will look at things at the 30,000 foot level, they'll look at things in the long term, but yeah, they're not going to spend more money than they currently have in the bank. Like
Hmm.
that is not a smart business financial decision because that, especially if you have a team, that doesn't just affect you. That affects the team that you're working with.
Right.
Now
Right.
you're
Yeah.
messing with other people's livelihoods too. And as a business owner, you don't want to tread into that sticky situation. Um
Absolutely not.
yeah,
Yeah.
so sure, it's great to have projections, right? It's great to have
Sure.
projections and plans.
Yeah.
That's how you figure out like, well, what steps do we need to take to get to that point? But at the same time, yeah, putting yourself into debt thinking it's going to be resolved in the future is not the smartest approach to take.
Right. And debt is a tool
It is a
if you
tool.
use it like a tool,
It's not a
but
bad
don't.
thing. Debt is not a bad
Right.
thing
Right.
if you
You just got
know
to
how
use
to
it wisely.
yeah, I was going to say if you know how to manage it.
Exactly. And if you know what you're doing with it. So,
Mhm.
like, if you have a goal, where debt gets into trouble is, hey, let's go out to eat, or, things like that.
Mhm.
That's where debt gets bad.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I want to re-emphasize here that Renee and I are absolutely not saying that we are the queens of finances
Oh,
or
hell
that we
no.
have our shit together because we definitely don't.
No.
Like I for sure do not have my shit together. I have made
No.
very poor decisions in the past, probably recently too. Uh, but like they're all lessons that you learn from, and that's the reason why we share this because it's not that we haven't gone through it and we're just talking about things that we're pulling out of our ass. Like we're talking from personal experience. We have made these bad decisions. We have gone through and um we have gone into debt. We have done everything that we have said don't do. We've probably done it. That's why we're telling
Oh,
you don't
absolutely.
do this.
Yeah. Oh, let me be very clear too, and give a couple of examples. One is I didn't pay cash for my car last year. I financed it because we were making so much money. I wasn't worried about it. The payment just didn't even, who cared?
Yeah.
And then this year, our revenue got cut in 50%. You know who cares about a car payment now? Let me tell you,
Yeah.
it's Renee. Yeah, car
Right.
payment's really hurting. It sucks. I'm making the car payment. It's not a problem,
Yeah.
but I am not going on vacation this year because I
Uh-huh.
got to make
Yeah.
a car payment. You know,
Yep.
um, a car payment that wasn't even on my blip of a radar last year. This
Right.
year is like the most painful thing I'm living through.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, let's be clear. It is not easy
We're
to
not
figure all of
talking
this
from a
out.
pedestal. Yeah, we are
Yeah,
talking because
exactly.
we have been in the mud of everything, like trying to claw our way out of it. And we still got a foot and maybe an arm stuck in there, and
Yeah.
we struggle just like everybody else does. So that was the whole point of this discussion, is that nobody is immune to these problems. Nobody. I don't care how successful people look. I can tell you right now that the Jeff Bezos and the Bill and Melinda Gates of the world, they have money problems too. It may not look the same, but it still feels the same.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
their situations are probably things we can't even comprehend, but the feeling of desperation and anxiety and just fear, they have that too. So nobody is immune from this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is an ongoing issue.
Mhm.
And my only thing that I hope people will take away from this is to plan for dramatic fluctuations in income if you're going to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
Because,
dramatic fluctuations are going to be there. It's part of the game.
right.
It
And
hurts.
it sucks bad. So, like, you expect maybe a 10 or 20, you don't expect a 50%
Right.
fluctuation. But when it does happen, you want to be able to, like, wow, that sucks,
Yeah.
and you get to keep going with your business instead of having
Mhm.
to give up.
Well, because once
So,
again, you've got business owners that are making multiple millions of dollars, right? But they're probably
mhm,
only paying themselves like maybe $30,000 or $40,000 a year, whatever is reasonable and customary, according to their
right,
accountant. So
right.
every accountant is different, and that's the other thing when it comes to financial decisions. Like if anything, the best thing that you can do is invest in a professional. Like invest,
Oh yeah,
even if it's just buying their time. Like I will pay for an hour of accounting consulting just so I know that I am on the right path, that I'm doing the right thing. You know what I mean? Like that's probably my biggest advice, because you asked me earlier what is my biggest piece of advice that I would
yeah,
give to somebody that's starting a business. Yeah, spend money on an accountant. Like do that. If
absolutely.
if you don't spend money on anything else at all, buy an hour of an accountant's time just to make sure your business is set up for success.
Yeah, our accountant is our best investment for sure.
Absolutely. Mine too. They know me too well.
And I'm not even talking about our kid. Our kid is a CPA. She is an accountant, but she doesn't do jack for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's not.
Yeah.
We're just her parents.
I
So
was
we're
gonna
too
say
poor for her. We're
you
too
think
poor
you'd
for
have a
her.
built-in CPA advisor, right? But no.
Yeah, no, no, not at all. No,
Yep.
we're way too small for her to ever think about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's pretty funny to think about that, but it's true.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, the best thing I could have done was, bought 1 hour of an accountant's time just to be, because what I thought I was doing, I thought I was doing the right thing because I read
Hmm.
Profit First, like I read Profit First and I listened to
Yeah.
the podcasts that talk about managing money for your business or whatever. But then you sit down and you speak with an accountant that actually will file the taxes for you, and they know the tax breaks for your specific industry, because that's the other thing. Every single industry has very different
Hmm.
things that you can write off and very different rules to follow, right? So, um, the structure of your business comes into play too, whether you're a sole proprietor or LLC or an S corporation. Like all of those are so different. And the rules that you, or not the rules, I'm sorry, but the things that you read about in things like Profit First or, you know, podcasts like the Mind Your Money podcast, all that kind of stuff, they're very generalized pieces of advice. And so, yeah, spend the $150, $200. I don't know. How much do accountants charge per hour? I don't even remember because mine's just on a like retainer. So
Yeah, as I say, mine just takes the money. I don't know.
right,
Bank
exactly.
accounts,
Yeah.
I
Same
don't
with
really know.
like they just
Yeah.
yeah, they just take the money. And no,
Yeah.
but that was probably the best investment that I could have made in my business. And I think it's the best investment anybody can ever make in their business. Even if you are a sole proprietor starting out, go talk to an accountant, please. Like, for the love of God, pray, like just
Yeah.
praying like on, what is it? 7 pound, 3 ounce baby Jesus. Just go speak to an accountant.
That's right. Rub the Buddha belly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Everything.
we're
Just,
devolving.
yeah, all the.
We should go. I
I
need
know.
food.
I do too.
Okay. All right.
Oh my
So,
goodness. All righty. Well, thanks everyone for
yes.
listening again. And yeah, if you have questions for us, like, we're always happy to answer them. We will answer them on another
Absolutely.
episode or whatever. We'll actually take notes.
Yes.
We'll
Yes,
actually
we will
take
do that.
notes.
Absolutely. Okay.
So
Do it.